it is better to measure yourself and healthier to measure yourself from the gain. Where we was last year, we're not this year, right? Where we was yesterday, we are not that today. The way we think is better. The way that we see things are better. Our knowledge is growing. And even if you can't see it, it is happening. Welcome to the Becoming Confident podcast, journey to building healthy self-esteem, the place where I initiate raw conversations on topics I believe contributes to and is impacted by self-esteem and confidence. If you are on a journey or you're ready to start your journey to becoming confident and you feel alone in the process, then this podcast is for you. I am your host, Cleopatra Williams, and I can't wait to support you in becoming your most confident self. Welcome back to another episode of Becoming Confident with me, your host, Cleopatra Williams. So in this episode, I am going to talk about the very feeling that a lot of us go through when we desire to be more, we desire to do more, we desire to have more, right? And it's the feeling of, man, I should be further along than I am right now. And so, what made me come up with this episode is that I had a client who was feeling this way, and I thought to myself, like, a lot of us feel this way, right? It's always this constant struggle. This feeling alone oftentimes causes us to feel insecure, causes us to feel shame, to feel guilty, not qualified, not good enough, right? This is why we often compare ourselves to other women and other people, why we have a hard time forgiving ourselves, wishing that we would have did things differently, wishing that we were different, rehashing the past over and over and over again, beating ourselves up, right? We feel so bad because we feel like we should be further along, right? And to be honest, like this was a really huge struggle for me for so many years. This was a very feeling last year. I started my journey in April 2022. And this was one of the very feelings that I was having because, I was depressed. I was really down and not being where I thought I should be. 31 years old at the time. I just felt like I should be more like emotionally, mentally, financially, professionally, right? I just felt like I should be more and I wasn't, or I didn't feel like I was. I feel like I should be further along. However, I do understand that if I don't monitor those thoughts, that I can very easily go back to those old ways of thinking and feelings that don't really do any good for me. I constantly have to check myself and stay on top of my thoughts, especially when things don't go quite as planned. It doesn't do any good for my confidence in myself. It doesn't do any good for my self-esteem. So why allow myself to feel those things? So recently, I was listening to this guy that I watch a lot on YouTube, and he said something that really stood out to me, right? And he said that one of the words that we all should just eliminate from our vocabulary is the word should. Because the word should is literally a daily reminder to yourself of what you're lacking. And I honestly never really thought about it in that way. We measure ourselves, our lives from a view of lack versus from a view of gaining. That doesn't make us feel good about ourselves. It makes us feel like we never accomplished anything. It makes us feel embarrassed and shameful. It makes us forget our wins, right? The wins, the small wins that we have, the big wins that we've had, because we're so focused on where we should be versus where we came from. Here's the thing. It is better to measure yourself and healthier to measure yourself from the gain. Where we was last year, we're not this year, right? Where we was yesterday, we are not that today. The way we think is better. The way that we see things are better. Our knowledge is growing. And even if you can't see it, it is happening. Maybe you feel like you're stuck. You feel the same way. But if you're listening to this podcast, you're clearly on a personal development journey. And it really doesn't matter what level you at on your journey. You are learning something that you didn't know yesterday. You are learning something that you didn't know last week. Okay? So you are further along mentally, emotionally than you were yesterday, last year. And this only applies as long as you are taking the steps to do the work. If you are taking a step to do the work, to gain the knowledge, to take the action, then you are further along than you were yesterday, last week, last month, last year. Even if it may not seem like that way on the outside, there are things happening that eventually you're going to look back and be like, wow, I do know a lot more about myself. Wow, I do see things differently. And so when I was listening to this, right, I was thinking to myself, we really don't stop to evaluate ourselves. I am very much mostly focused on where I'm going to be tomorrow, where I'm going to be next month, where I'm going to be next year. And I will say that's something that's very natural because I'm a goal getter. And if you are a goal getter, if you are somebody who desire to be better, desire to be more, it's quite natural for you to focus on the future. It's quite natural for that to happen. And as a go getter, I never really allow myself to just evaluate like how much I've grown. Yes, I practice self awareness to make sure that I'm on track, to make sure that I'm doing things aligned with the person that I'm becoming. But I don't always go back to reflect on how much I've grown over this past year and a few months. Because when I started my journey, it's been over a year already, right? This happened in April of 2022, but I've grown so much as a person because I am a constant student of myself. I'm in constant self development. A book that I was reading last week and I read it again this week, my perspective on it changed. I picked up something that I didn't see last week because my insight and my knowledge is growing. So I was able to see that something more clearly. And sometimes we forget even those small things. Look at something you were just looking at last week and see, did your perspective change? It's just simple things like that you may not even pick up on. Learning a new word. Right now, you have a new understanding. There's things that we skip over, but those are simple things that you can start measuring yourself against the gain that you've had, right? And that's what's going to set the foundation for you to become better, to do better, and have better. So take the time today to think about what have you gained versus the lack because you can decide to focus on what you decide to focus on, and what you focus on creates thoughts in your mind, right? That creates a feeling in your body, and those very feelings controls the actions that you take. So for example, when you focus on the lack, oh, I should be further along, you're really focused on the negative aspect of things, right? And so you're going to start talking to yourself badly, like, oh, I suck. I'm not good enough. Constantly just being nasty and not kind to yourself. And this is just going to one create a victim mindset if you allow it to, but in return it's going to make you feel down, it's going to make you feel sad. And when you start feeling sad, what do? You procrastinate, right? You lay down, you move slower, you give up, you start doubting yourself, you start having all these things that takes place because you decided to focus on I should be further along. Versus if you just focus on the gain of how much you've grown, like, oh my gosh, like I learned so much. I'm so much smarter. Like I'm so much more patient. I know new skills that's going to help me get to where I desire to be. When you focus on those things that you are building in yourself and that you have learned and gained that can take you to the place that you desire to be, you're going to start having more positive thoughts about yourself. And you're going to be feeling better about yourself, which is going to create this excitement in your body, this anticipation that that even though you haven't gotten there yet, you are going to get there. And what's going to happen is that you are going to take action. You are going to take action because you're going to be like, yo, like, I am proud of myself. I want to keep this feeling. I want to keep this going. And that action is going to take you to getting closer to where you feel like you should be. It's going to get you closer to becoming the person that you need to be, doing the things that you need to do so that you can have the very life that you truly desire to have. All right. So be responsible. You're responsible for your life and what you choose to focus on. Okay. Because remember, what you focus on controls your thoughts. Those thoughts controls how you feel, and how you feel controls your action. But with that being said, I know that it's not always easy to do when you already feel like crap, when you already feel down on yourself. I know it's not always easy to do. So intentionally make an effort to focus on the gain, to focus on where you came from, to focus on how much you're growing and not what you should have or that you're not further along. And I know, trust me, I know that it's not always easy to do that. It's not always easy to do that, right? Especially when you want it so bad. When you want it so bad and it feels so far away. But if you just have better control over your thoughts and your feelings that are going to affect your actions, then you are going to get further along and you're going to get there quicker and faster than you think because you're not allowing yourself to stay in the funk of you not being where you should be, you not being further along. Okay. And I also want to point out this, right? When you're focused on the I should be further along, you're really sending out this energy of ungratefulness. You're sending out an energy that you're not grateful for where you are. You're not grateful for the things that God's brought you through, right? And the thing is, you can absolutely, like, we absolutely desire to be more, to have more, to do more, and be further along. But you can do that and you can still be grateful, right? There's absolutely nothing wrong with just being in gratitude. If anything, that's the key to everything. And the thing is, I know for some people, and I'm not going to tell you to do this because I don't believe in this because this is not what I'm speaking about. A lot of people will tell you to be content with what you have. And I absolutely don't agree with that. Like I said, it is very natural and it is your birthright to desire abundance. It is your birthright to want to be more, to be a better person, to do more, to do better things, and to have more than you've ever had. You don't need to be content with where you are when you aren't satisfied where you are because you know that you are meant to be greater and you know that you are meant to do greater and you know that you are meant to have more abundance in your life. This world is full of abundance and you are meant to experience it. So if you have that desire to be further along, it's there for a reason. Don't let people make you feel like, oh, you just need to be content with what you have, all of this and a third. Nah, that comes from a mindset of that they don't feel like they deserve to have things that they want to have and that they feel that things are just not that possible for them. However, being content and being grateful are two separate things, right? Because this world is full of endless possibilities and you are very deserving of it. But being content is not what you need to be, but being grateful is where you need to be because you are, again, better than where you were yesterday, right? Better than where you were last year. This does not mean that you don't want to strive for more. This just means that you're grateful, right? It's time to just learn how to say thank you that I'm here and I'm not where I used to be. Again, it's not always easy, right? Easier said than done, but that's where come a mindset thing. Thank you that my mindset is better than it was yesterday. Yesterday, maybe you was giving up on yourself, but today you're like, no, I got this. Today, you know that you are capable of more than you think you are. Thank you that you know more than you did last year. Thank you that he gave you a greater vision for your life. Thank you that you have everything within you to create the very life that you desire. You have everything within you to be more, do more, and have more because gratitude open up the door for you to receive more abundance, right? It opens up the door for you to receive more positivity. It opens up the door for you to receive more love, to receive more confidence in yourself, to receive a better identity of yourself. It opens up the door for you to receive healthier self-esteem, but you just don't have to be content. Just be grateful and still have that desire to have more, do more, and be more, right? And being content and being happy are also two very different things. Being grateful is what creates even more happiness and joy. Because when you're grateful, when you're just naturally grateful for something, you're automatically gonna feel good about yourself. Okay? Because that's just sending positivity from you. Okay, so now that we touched on that, I want to touch on this, right? If you are feeling like you should be further along, this is really the hard truth, right? You may not be further along. And this was a hard truth for me that you may not be further along because you are not the person that you need to be further along. A lot of people want to be further along, but in order to be further along, you need to be more, right? You need to become more than the person that you are now. Clearly, the person that you are now is not taking you further along, right? So you have to become more. So who are you being? Honestly. And this is where it comes down to just being real with yourself. Like, what are the things that you doing? Who is your most confident self? Your most confident self of the person that should be further along. Who is she? What is she doing? Your most confident self, that's the person that's going to be in the present time of that further along. But you have to get into being that person in order to handle the capacity of what further along will bring to you. Are you in position? Are you the person to handle that further along that you're looking for? And a good way to seeing this is that our outside reality is always going to be a reflection of what's going on internally, right? So, how is your self esteem? Do you feel like you deserve to be further along? There's a big difference from saying, oh, I should be further along, than actually feeling like you deserve to be further along. Do you feel worthy of being further along? Do you sabotage yourself because you get inside of your head? Do you do that? Do you crumble easily when things aren't going your way? Yeah. How's your mindset? Are you indecisive? Do you procrastinate? Are you a perfectionist? Are you inconsistent? Are you easily distracted? Do you have so much lack of clarity? So, these are all things that a lot of us do subconsciously and consciously, knowingly and unknowingly. These are things that we do, these are things that we feel, but these are things that hinder us from getting to that further along that we want to be because we're not being the person that we need to be in order to get to where we want to go. We're not being the person that we need to be so that we can do the things that we need to do so that we can have the things that we want to have and that further along. And this looks different for everybody, right? Because everybody's vision of their future looks different. So it's up to you to tap into you, to become self aware of what is required of you to get to where you want to be. And take a hard look at yourself and being honest with yourself. Are you doing the things that are hindering you? Are you being the person that's hindering you from getting to where you want to go? Yes, you are better than you was yesterday. Yes, you are better than you were last year, but that does not negate your current actions and that does not negate who you are being in this very moment. And the thing is, it doesn't matter what we do knowingly and unknowingly, who we are being. It doesn't matter. Whatever you're choosing to do, whoever you're choosing to be, is going to affect how you see yourself and is going to affect how you feel about yourself. And another thing of why we probably aren't further along, we haven't learned the lesson that we need to learn from this. We keep doing the same things over and over and over again, knowingly and unknowingly, right? If you know that you're doing the same thing over and over and over again, then that's the definition of insanity. If you're expecting different results, that's a little cray cray, right? It's time to really check in with yourself, especially when you know what you're doing consciously. However, like I mentioned before, there are some things that we do that we've had habits for doing for years, right? That we don't even know. We don't even know that we're thinking these things. We don't even know that we're feeling these things. But those are habits. We just haven't learned the lesson yet because we haven't brought attention to it. We haven't got in tune with ourselves. And that is hindering us again because we just haven't learned the lesson that we need to learn so that we don't do it again. And for me, like I had a moment happen a few months ago that was really hard for me, and I let my emotions take over. And I was like, man, but guess what? That was a lesson that I realized because I struggled with it for years of allowing, especially when I'm in the zone, right? I'm moving, I'm grooving, you know, everything's working out, and I allow something to come in, take me off track, to distract me and to get me and to affect my emotions where I feel like I'm not in control of myself, and it gets me down on myself, and then I beat myself up about it. And I thought I overcame that. But something happened because it was trying to teach me a lesson like, nah, you haven't learned your lesson yet, because this is going to hinder you from getting to where you need to be. All the things that you want to do in your life, you cannot allow these type of distractions to keep happening. You cannot allow, if somebody pushes your button, for it to affect you in a way that stops you from doing the very thing that you are called to serve, right? And I had to learn that lesson. I had to realize, like, wait, this can keep happening. So this is it, right? So these are things that, be mindful of yourself. We can't keep crumbling when things get hard, when things aren't working out. We can't keep crumbling. Things aren't working out because you just haven't tried something different. Things aren't working out because maybe you're just not asking the right questions, but you can't keep crumbling. I remember years ago, my old manager, he was just like, "You always keep fucking crumbling." And when I was doing door to door, like he was just like, "Why you always crying? Why you always breaking down when, things don't go your way? Why you always doing this? Like you need to build up some grit." And I didn't learn that lesson for years. I was always crumbling. Maybe you haven't learned the lesson of not being easily distracted. Maybe you haven't learned the lesson of not being in environments that you need to not be in. Maybe you haven't learned the lesson to stop eating the foods that are going to hinder you from the progression that you're trying to be in. Maybe you haven't learned the lesson to stop being inconsistent. Maybe you haven't learned the lesson to stop being a perfectionist. Maybe you haven't learned the lesson of being a procrastinator. Maybe you haven't learned the lesson of stop self-sabotaging yourself. Because these are the very things that are holding you back. These are the very things that is holding us back from getting to that further along. The further along that we're looking for. The further along that you are looking for. So it's time to just start becoming aware of who you are being right now, the things that you are doing right now that's holding you back from being further along. Okay. So, should you be further along? Sometimes you can feel like you should be further along, but maybe you are in the place that you need to be. Yes, you could be further along. Yes, I could have been further along, right? But again, we didn't learn the things that we needed to learn. However, we are not where we were yesterday. We are not where we were last year. And at the end of the day, with that all being said, if you are still alive, becoming confident listeners, if you are still alive, this is an opportunity. That means you still have a chance to get to your further along. And that's the most beautiful thing, right? Just don't waste time. Don't waste time thinking about, oh, you should be further along, because that's going to slow you down. That's going to cause you to think bad thoughts again. Remember, right? It's going to cause you to feel badly, and it's going to cause you to slow down your progress. Don't give that your energy anymore, right? That sends a lack energy. Focus on the gain. Get that abundance energy. Get that grateful energy within you. Get that excitement energy. That's what's going to help you keep going. That's what's going to make you feel good about yourself. And in due time, you know that all is well. The further along that you wish you should be, the further along that you think you should be, is going to come into fruition sooner or later. And guess what? When you get to that further along, you're probably going to be thinking, ooh, I should be further along than this, right? So it just comes down to perspective and knowing that you just need to become more than you're being right now. And by all means, keep this desire. Keep the desire to be more, to do more, to have more. Keep that desire to be more confident. Keep that desire to be your best self. Keep this desire to live a great lifestyle. Keep this desire, right? Because it is your birthright. But stay grateful for where you came from and monitor your thoughts. Monitor your thoughts so that you can keep those great feelings that's going to take you to where you believe that you should be. And so, in conclusion, right, I hope that this message really touched you, especially if you feel like you should be further along. Because let me tell you, I get it. It's one of those natural feelings that we all feel when we see people who are where we desire to be, right? It's a very natural feeling that we have because we know, especially when we see it in other people, if they can do it, you can do it too. If they can have it, so can you, right? If they can become more, so can you. I want you to get into the mindset of being grateful and measuring yourself from the gain because you've grown so much. Look at the small things. Even if you don't realize it, trust me, you have. If you are prioritizing your self-development, if you are prioritizing your mindset, your confidence, your self-esteem, if you're prioritizing doing the things that you truly desire to do, you are gaining. You are gaining something. Okay. So I do hope this helps you on your journey to becoming confident. I hope this helps you on your journey to becoming your best self and building healthy self esteem. And that is it for this episode. And until next time, guys, bye.